This is Pre-Algebra Video 1-5, Video 2. We were looking at Example 2, Problem A, and we did it in my notebook, and this is the answer that we got, although my line graph was not quite as big. But one thing that we did not do at the end of that one was check it, just like we have to check equations. Actually, you know what? We did check it, we just didn't check it on paper. So what I told you to do was to pick something that was less than 2.5 and to plug it back in. They chose a decimal number. I tried it with 1 and 0. You could choose anything, and anything that was in what you graphed as being the solution, you would rewrite the equation, you would plug that in, one of the options on what you graphed as the answers. You would plug it in, see if it actually is less than 10, and if it is less than 10, then you check it off, and you're done. Let's look at one other thing. They chose to plug in one to the right that was not graphed as an answer. I don't really need you to do that. I just need you to check the equation by using one of the ones that the graph says is an answer, and that's enough for me for this lesson. So you just choose one that is a solution according to your graph, plug it into the original equation, solve it, check it off if it's correct, and then move on to the next problem. All right, let's look at the next problem. 6n is greater than or equal to 18. All right, let's go over here to my notebook. 6n is greater than or equal to 18. Well, in our class, in our 6th grade math class, we learned how to do equations like this, where two things are multiplied together, but in order to get n alone, we need to divide by the number that's there, because division is the opposite of this multiplication. So I'm going to divide both sides of this problem by 6. I'm going to treat it just like a normal equation, even though it's an inequality. Those are going to become a 1. So this says 1n is greater than or equal to 3. But we don't need this 1, so I'm simply going to say n is greater than or equal to 3. Now I need to graph that. Let's go over and use the graph that they've already done for the sake of time. We are on letter B right here. And this time, it's not just greater than 3, it's greater than or equal to 3. So 3 gets to be included in the solution set by us coloring in the bubble right there over 3. And then we color everything to the right of 3. And then, of course, we would need to check it. We would plug something in this colored in space back into the problem to see if it worked. So by checking it, I might choose 5 and plug 5 back in. 6 times 5 is 30. Is that in fact either equal to 18 or greater than 18? Yes, it's greater than 18. I would put 18 equals 18 and I would check it off just like we've done in class. All right, let's look at letter C. T minus 3 is less than or equal to 22. I want to get t alone, treating this just like an equation. I'm going to add 3 to both sides to get t alone, and t is going to be less than or equal to 25. Remember, because the equal is included, we have to color in our 25. And so 25 is partly a solution or a possible solution, and everything less than 25 is a solution. Now, one thing I want you to notice about this line graph is that they counted by 5s, and that's perfectly fine. You can or you don't need to. Either way is okay. And the last one is something that we are going to learn on Thursday in our 6th grade math class, and that is that when you have a division problem in your equation or inequality, you do the opposite of division to get rid of it. You separate it by multiplication. Let's look at an example of that before we go on with this example. Let's say that x equals 16 over m. No, that won't work. Sorry. Let's change this to a 2. Let's say 2 equals 16 over m. We need to figure out what m stands for. Now, if you'll notice, m is on the bottom of this equation. It's divided by m. 16 is divided by m. What's the opposite of division? We're going to, you know what, y'all? This is just a really bad example. Let me think for just a minute about a better example because I do not want to confuse you. So let me redo this. Let's start over. I want M to get off of the bottom and be on the top. So forgive me and let me redo that. Let me think for just a second. There we go. Let's do that instead. I feel better about this example. So ignore the top one and bear with me on this one. Again, we have division. We have M divided by 8. How do we undo division? We have to do the inverse, which is multiplication. So watch what I'm going to do. In order to undivide, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to say times 8. Whatever I do to one side of the problem, I also must do to the other. Remember that? So, one thing you need to notice here is that this 8 is really an 8 over a 1, just like every other number is that number over a 1. 16 is always, in reality, a 16 over a 1 because 16 divided by 1 just equals 16. So 8 is really always an 8 over a 1 because 8 divided by 1 is just 8. But if you'll look at this 8 in the denominator cancels with this 8 in the numerator. And this is something that you should know from past math. If you don't, I'm sure we'll be covering it in our 6th grade math, and that will help you. But these 8's cancel, and we're really just left with M over 1 over here, which is really just M. So we have our equal sign, and because we multiplied this side by 8, we have to multiply this side by 8, and that's 16, and M equals 16. So we did a quick review, or actually that was kind of a quick learning tool. Now let's go over here and solve this inequality, because now you have the tools to do it. So this is letter D, and we are looking at 5 is greater than W divided by 2. Remember, these are divided, so we have to get W alone by doing the opposite of what's here. We're going to multiply both sides by 2. They multiplied by a 2 here, and they multiplied by a 2 here. That leaves us with 10 on this side, and on this side, the 2's cancel, because remember, this 2 is really a 2 over a 1, so the 2 on top cancels with the 2 on the bottom, and we're just left with W, or W over 1. So our answer to this inequality is that 10 is greater than W. We cannot include W in our solution set because it doesn't say greater than or equal to, so we have to have an empty bubble, but 10 is greater than W, or we can read it backwards and say W is less than 10. Notice we can read it either way. 10 is greater than W, or W is less than 10. So if W is less than 10, everything to the left of 10 is going to be colored in. All right, we are not going to do the word problem for the sake of time, so I will not include any word problems for this homework assignment in your homework, but what I will do is post these on the lesson plans. Remember that for Natalie and Brendan, for their particular pre-algebra class, on the 6th grade lesson plan, it's going to say N and B, or B and N, and that will tell you what problems to do. Remember also that they will all be odd and that you will need to check all of them or check them with your parents. All right, hope you make sure that you watch both videos and hope it's helpful. Bye-bye.